I'm super happy with this post from Capital Games. Finally, we have some communication on a lot of the stuff that has been going on that has been causing issues. CG Eric here made a post just now that I want to highlight and read to you. In short, we are going to be refunding gear for people who invested recently in Seth Assassin since 320, I think it was. And then they are also announcing an intention to investigate into Jedi Anakin a little bit to make sure that he is working as intended. And the TLDR to that is that they are basically stating we do not intend Jedi Anakin to outperform Darth Malak. I feel like that's fair. I don't so far feel like he is. I think he's just somebody you can't leave alone, and I think it's pretty good. So I'm hoping that they don't nerf him at this point, but we will see. And so let's get into the meat of this. I want to read over this and give you guys kind of my take on what Mr. Eric is saying, and I'm again, super stoked because I feel like we've kind of felt like recently a lot of our concerns that we've had with all this stuff going on have kind of been ignored. And I don't think that's necessarily the case anymore. This is a direct response to community feedback on Seth Assassin. I know there were some posts on Reddit, and I know I actually had a conversation directly with a Dove about Seth Assassin, making a very strong push for people to have that gear refunded or for things to be adjusted so that she's no longer useless. And so I think that this is a direct response to community feedback, and so I have to give Capital Games props for that because that is what we want to see. And so here's what Eric talks about. He says, with over 170 characters and 40 ships, Star Wars, you can see where he's going already with this. Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes has an incredible breadth of character interactions. Why that makes for an interesting game, and despite thousands of man-hours of testing per release, it also presents a very difficult challenge in terms of not introducing interactions that create unintended and potentially game-breaking consequences, especially as new characters interact with characters we built over 3 years ago. Palpatine. That's obviously what they're referring to here. It is not news that after characters are put in the wild and players have a chance to plug and play with them, that we've seen issues in their interactions and increasingly so over the past few releases. That's not something we're proud of, and it's not a sustainable pattern. The reality is, as we have the opportunity to discuss with many of you at Celebration, that within the first hour of a character going live, the community has eclipsed the total number of hours that we've been able to test many times over. Now, this is not an excuse because it's part of our job. I think that I actually really like what he's communicating here, because this is something I've mentioned before. When we have these bugs come out, the blame is quickly shifted towards Capital Games for not testing it adequately enough, because we find it super fast in the community. Now, while I agree, and he's not making excuses for Capital Games because it is their job to test these things and make sure that they're ready upon release, it is also notable that there is a ton more testing that's going to happen when some million people that play this game have a chance to play with that new content versus their studio. And so again, not an excuse, and we're going to get to maybe a potential solution on this. He says, we will continue to work as hard as possible to ensure we minimize these issues as much as possible. There are a number of changes we are considering making to the testing process. See Carrie's recent overtures about our intention to potentially expand our balancing process to something akin to a public test server. I love that idea that you can see in complicated games like MMOs. This is a complicated game now, and so I think it makes sense. We also need to respond quickly and thoughtfully whenever damaging interactions occur, which I also agree, because we don't want investments to be undermined. Our goal, whenever possible, is to creatively design around game-breaking bugs, and while we'd prefer to nerf characters if possible, interactions will occur that are damaging to the long-term health of the game. or we prefer to never nerf characters if possible. I think I read that wrong. The long-term outlook of this game, and we are forced to respond. When this happens, we will do whatever we can to rectify the situation as fairly as possible. Galaxy of Heroes is a game about successful resource management. Yes, it is. You are in a resource management game, people. And so, while unintended interactions occur, if that change is to counter the information we published, which influence players to make specific investment choices, we will always endeavor to make the situation right, which may look different depending on the situation. So that leads us to the discussion around Seth Assassin. While the release of with the release of Darth Revan's kit, we communicated that the Darth Revan synergizes with Sith Assassin. I think this is funny because I sent this graphic over to a dev and I said, look, it's not just that we decided to farm Sith Assassin. You told us to farm Sith Assassin. This character remains very competitive in a squad that includes Darth Revan, but does not include Darth Malak. Following the release of Darth Malak, some players chose to invest in Sith Assassin, expecting Darth Malak's gnawing terribility to positively work with those characters. Following the announcement that we were making the adjustment to Malak's kit, we heard the dissatisfaction from the players who made an investment in Sith Assassin, who felt like that change nullified their investment, because it did nullify that investment in almost every case that I can conceive of. I mean, unless you were farming Sith Assassin for ships, it undermined your investment. Who was farming Sith Assassin for ships? Raise your hand. And who was not planning on using Sith Assassin in your primary arena team when you farmed her recently? So we're looking to return any gear to your inbox which was applied to Sith Assassin following the announcement of Darth Revan's synergies on 3/20. This is right, my friends. I am very happy to see them doing this. It's a good move, Capital Games. Thank you very much. I would probably prefer that they just found a way to make Sith Assassin usable, but if we're not able to do that, fine. Get the gear back, especially people who invested Gear 12 Plus. That is a huge kick in the nuts if you put Gear 12 Plus on characters and then aren't able to use it. Because this is sort of a wide-scale adjustment to players' gear, isn't something we had to do before, and because we want to do it right and not ram out an incomplete solution, we're not going to commit to a date for this update. I think that's fair, but we will continue to communicate updates as we make progress. Conditions: you must have Darth Revan, and you applied any gear pieces to Sith Assassin following the announcement of Revan on 3/20. So what that reads to me is, if you got Darth Revan and you put any gear on Sith Assassin since 3/20, you'll have that gear refunded, whatever it is. And then here's the meat about the Anakin announcement. Additionally, we've been monitoring the forums and Reddit and noticed the performance of Jedi Knight Anakin relative to some Darth Malak teams. We have only a limited number of cases to evaluate. I'm a bit confused by that. I'm not sure what he's referring to because I feel like there's a lot of cases. But anyway, we are actively reviewing data as it comes in. Our intention is that Jedi Knight Anakin should not outperform Darth Malak. I want to state here, I feel like that is fair. Jedi Knight Revan should not be outperforming Darth Malak right now. That said, you just reworked him. If you've got a testing team, I'm trying to figure out how we didn't test him against, I don't know, Darth Malak. But anyway, we'll evaluate cases we are seeing for different differentials in mods, levels, abilities, etc. to potentially explain any discrepancies. If this would inform any decisions to gear or level him up, we would ask that you refrain from doing so until we give the all clear on his kit. I think that's also fair. In fact, I made an announcement earlier today on my Discord server when we saw there were buzzings and rumors that a nerf could be coming. Don't put gear on him. Let's not do another Sith Assassin situation if at all possible. Please stay tuned. We will give an update as soon as we are able, both in our near team plans with the Sith Assassin, Sith Marauder refunds, and possibly with Jedi Knight Anakin, as well as any potential long-term changes to our testing regime to ensure the quality of these releases are within acceptable standard. Thanks for your patience and understanding, and we'll see you on the holotables. Yes, we will, Eric. Okay, so at the end of the day, I'm really, really pleased with everything that Eric said here. My concern is going to be that Anakin gets a nerf right now, obviously, because I think Anakin's great. However, I can also see why people would be concerned about a character like Anakin busting out his AoE for 100,000 damage plus and completely annihilating an entire Darth Malak team. And so I think there's a balance to find here. Now, as far as what I'm doing, my Anakin is already gear 12. If you were wanting to take Anakin to gear 12, if you already have your arena team pretty much sorted out, I still think it's valuable to take him to gear 12. He might get tuned back a little bit, but we've got this Anakin, Ahsoka, a General Kenobi synergy that is still going to be valuable in my opinion in Grand Arena. What I'm personally going to refrain from though is putting any gear 12 plus pieces on him. I don't want to put anything crazy on him right now until we see what that's going to look like, but the future of this game definitely seems to be pointing towards maybe some Clone Wars Jedi synergy, or we got some, you know, the Geonosis territory battles coming up and more Clone Wars content. And so I think it's safe to invest in these characters and believe that you're going to have usability in them. It's just probably knocked down to, instead of like, you know, DEFCON, whatever the number is, like go farm him now, go now. It's not like that anymore. It's more of a luxury if you have your arena team sorted out right now and you want to have that trio farm pretty well. I think it's worth doing. And so at the end of the day, Capital Games, thank you. I'm very grateful that you are refunding the gear for people who invested in Seth Assassin. I think I might get a few pieces back based on this criteria because I do know that I took her to gear 11, I think. I personally would have been okay without receiving a refund because I don't remember putting that much. But man, if I had taken her all the way up to gear 12 and especially to gear 12 plus, I would be feeling really upset about that gear that I spent. And so I think this is an adequate way to mitigate that issue. And so let's keep the player feedback coming, my friends. Those of you who are expressing that feedback respectfully in these times, props to you. Don't be the dumpster fire. Be a calm, cool, collected person and give the feedback, because we do have examples of devs listening to it. And I think it's probably, I think maybe one of the reasons why communication was a bit halted here could be that they were focused on celebration, not making excuses, but maybe that's what it had to do with. We're seeing that now and celebration's over. Lastly, what I am super stoked about is the concept of a public test server. Let us find the bugs for you, Capital Games. We understand you've got one computer for everyone to work on. We get it. It can be a bit much to find all the bugs with one computer in your office in Sacramento. We all have lots of computers. We've got cell phones. I've got a cell phone. I don't know if you have that yet. But I've also got BlueStacks. I've got Nox on my computer. I can play this game on my computer. You guys can play it on your computers. We'll find the bugs for you. So do your best to find those bugs through us, Capital Games. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope this information is happy for you. I'm not saying that this means that we should not be upset anymore about what's happened. There's a lot going on. I'm not telling anyone how to feel, but this is a move in the right direction. I'm personally pretty happy about it. And so if you did enjoy the video, thumbs up, my friends. And as always, my brothers, don't forget
my dead body. Sorry about the mess.